Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, first I want to thank Coach Bandstra for having me on. It's great fun to get to talk football, and today is the first day of practice for us. So my tail's wagging, and I'm ready to go. So, hey, I'm here to talk to you guys about the Flex Night system. It's a wide but shallow offense. Today I'm only going to be talking about the run game component. We were a spread team who ran the ball. So I just want to talk to you guys about some of the important things that we did in our offense. So let's get right at it. So first is my bona fides. You guys can see here, we were a terrible team that got progressively better over the course of a couple of years. We started out 0-9 with 13 kids on our roster with just under 40 boys in the high school. So we had virtually every single boy in the high school playing football for us, and it showed on the field. In 2010 is when we really started to develop what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. We were kind of a 2009, just kind of fluttering around, didn't know what we were doing. But by 2010, we started to really build a picture of things. The important things I just want to point off this sheet, and you guys can do with it as you wish. We were averaging, as you can see, about 6.5 yards a carry when we started to really get going and understood what we were doing. And probably more importantly, and I'll talk about this later, is if you guys look at the stats for the number of players that we had who were averaging more than 3 yards a carry, 11, 12, and 9 respectively. So we really focused on getting a lot of guys involved in the running game. We had a pretty shallow bench, and so we had to always have a kind of a hey you kind of prospect. So we wanted to keep it simple so we could get the hey you guy on the field and he could work. As far as awards and recognitions go, who cares? I still keep in touch with a lot of my boys, and the bigger reward is I've got some good dads out there and a couple of officers serving in the United States Armed Forces. So that part makes me happy. Currently, I'm with Front Range Christian, and I am the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator, and I am also the official bringer of discipline. So that's my role now, and we're doing a modified version of this year at Front Range, just kind of fit our roster a little bit better. So this is what I started with. So in 2009, after getting shelled every single game, mercied 7 of 9, we really had to kind of start to look at what we were doing a little bit closer. So the questions I started with was how many kids will show up. And those of you guys that are Coach 8-Man, you know what we're talking about. You don't know how many are going to show up every year, and you don't know who they are. So you can see we got progressively bigger and then had a little dip at the end. Like most small private schools, you can have a very big change in enrollment from class to class, or you might get a girl-heavy class. So that 20 number kind of reflects that. Who will they be? Well, they're really smart kids. They were really smart kids, and they were mostly basketball and soccer players. In California, we play soccer in the winter, so I could kind of pull the soccer team over to play some football, which worked out real nice for us. They were smaller athletes, and they were not what we would traditionally think of as natural football players. They were more the average body type, 5'6" to 5'10", 140 to 180 pounds. So not a gigantic team, but pretty athletic kids, all in pretty decent shape. We were in a location where in our little valley, in about a 20-minute drive, there were 7 other what would be considered 5A schools here in California, in Colorado, where I coach now. So we were surrounded by legit football programs, a couple of national champions, lots of NFL players coming out of that area. So we were not going to compete with most programs as far as football went. We were going to compete on academics, but we wanted to give the opportunity for academic kids to play some football. At the time, I was looking at what offenses I might be able to steal because I'm not that intelligent or creative or good at X's and O's. So I was trying to lift someone's playbook. What everyone in California at the time was running was primarily single wing, 2x2 or trip spread. So we didn't really have, and I'll go into that, but none of that quite matched up with what we had. So what D's would we see? We were going to see primarily the 3-3 stack and 3-3 flex. A couple of teams ran 4-2, but they generally only ran that when they saw single wing or I. So the questions that we had internally was, can we consistently run and pass with 3 offensive linemen in a pure spread? And that was not going to happen. We just didn't have the heft. We had decent receivers, but we just couldn't get it blocked and we couldn't run behind it. And then can we staff a power team? And that was also a no. We could not get 5 decent offensive linemen on the field at a time and 2 running backs. So we were in a weird situation. So the next question we had was, how do we take advantage of the men that we do have? And that's where I came up with, and this is what next slide is what I came up with. So we came up with the unbalanced spread. So you can see here that we try to get a traditional line surface on half the field without tempting the D to crowd the box. So as an offensive line coach, I'm always looking how we're going to block stuff, not just how we're going to execute stuff. And I find that having a guard and a tackle on the same side of the field to run a good traditional blocking scheme helps tremendously. We minimize the need for 3 dominant linemen. They're all together. They can learn how to work together, and we can work on their strengths and weaknesses. Fortunately, if you have a natural guard and a natural tackle, I think a guard and a tackle are 2 different guys generally. And so my statistical probability of being able to staff this offensive line goes way up when I don't need 2 guys that are both good tackles or good guards to play. We can naturally block the gap rules or zone rules here because we have that 2-man surface like you are probably more used to seeing. I feel like we can pull with more risk. Some folks are going to ask me, is that really is that really true what I'm showing there? And what we saw in the 5 years that we coached with this scheme, that most defenses showed us a 3-man front with a 5-0 and a 5 technique. So yes, this is generally what we saw. And we had a +1 advantage every time we came out on the field. And then we have 4 receivers and 4 run blockers. So the important thing that we like to do here is not cover up that tight end, or sometimes we call him weekend. We don't want to cover him up, and we really want him to be available in the passing game and only really block for us in the run game. We generally employed a 3+1 blocking scheme, which for us meant the quarterback was the 4th blocker. And sometimes would use either the tight end or the pistol back to fill that out. You can see by looking at what we have here as far as the negative are concerned is we are right biased. Now, I don't particularly think that that's a negative, and you'll see why later. But I know that some coaches are going to want to see a little more even or balanced approach to the game. I personally am not that concerned about it. We are inviting the D to play in the box, so there's no way around that. But I think that from our experience, 4 seems to attract fewer defensive players in the box than 3 does. I'm sorry, 4 attracts less in the box, fewer guys in the box than 5 does. And then the one of the real big negatives is the defense can't key on the guard, and we're going to learn to try to take and use that to our advantage. But it does exist, the capacity for the defense to really watch him and try to figure out what's going on. So these are the general formation. These are the kind of general or the basis of the formations that we used. You'll notice that in our numbering system that we use, we kept the balanced formations as even numbers and the unbalanced formations as odd numbers. Helps teach it a little bit. Kids always can kind of remember where they should be. You'll also notice that we go from the heavier, in quotation marks, the heavier formations, like I and single wing in the low numbers, and we get lighter, in quotation marks, as we progress up to empty back sets. I do apologize. In 800, our quarterback would generally be pistol, not under center. So those are basically our formations. You can see there's a lot that you can do here. These are just the ones that we liked and generally ran. I'm not telling you that this is necessarily the answer, but I think having balanced and unbalanced formations that you can flip between is really important in the 8-man game. Our play calling system, we use basically a system not unlike what Don Coryell did with San Diego. So we're going to use a 7-digit number to call the play. We'll put a tag at the beginning, the middle, and the end, depending on how we want to either modify the formation, where the backs are, or how many backs that there are, whether we want to go a single back or 2 back, depending on what we see. And then we'll use the 3rd tag for the uncommon stuff. You'll see that I break it up into back actions, not plays. So anytime that the quarterback and a running back interface with each other, we consider that a back action. We keep it pretty simple, and then we can modify those back actions using that 3rd tag, that variant tag as we call it. And then we number the backs. So at times we have flipped this, assigned back and back action in the play call if we thought that teams were starting to understand what we were doing over the course of the season. You'll notice I don't cover everything. I don't think you need everything, but we do leave that specials, and we do leave an open if we want to do something a little creative there in a week by week basis. So our unbalanced blocking rules are fairly simple, probably not unlike what most of you have. I am happy if you'd like to contact me. We can go a little deeper on blocking, because as an offensive line coach, it's important to me. But really today, I'm just trying to encourage you to consider this system, and we can talk offline if you'd like. So I believe that you both in our unblocking and in our blocking situations, I want to maximize the split. So I literally want my linemen to play as far away from each other as they possibly can. I believe that opens up running lanes much easier. It also gives quarterback more places to look, more viewing lanes. And we think it makes it easier to block in the running game. Defensive linemen are just further away from whether it's quarterback or running back. I didn't believe that we needed to crush folks. We just needed our light and fast offensive linemen to get out in front of the other guys. Love to see a pancake block, but it's not terribly necessary. We just need to get them in front of somebody. Generally, the handoff will happen in a pistol formation on a dive. The handoff is going to happen at 1.6 seconds, and he's going to be at the line of scrimmage in just under 2 seconds. So we just need that guy to not be in the play for 2 seconds. We don't need to knock him down. Work your tail off every play, snap to the echo of the whistle. And I also teach that I want guys screwing up at full speed. I don't like to see guys standing around because they don't understand what's going on. I'd rather them run into somebody at a high rate of speed than to scratch their head and wonder. We do, in unbalanced offensive line, we do believe that the guard has to make every play work. So he's going to be uncovered 90% of the time, and he has to do all the cleanup. So we really want that kid to figure out what's going on, and therefore he will make all the offensive line calls. He is kind of running the show, and he's going to decide how plays get run and how to get blocked. And then finally, we believe that you want to find a second or a third victim on every play. The greatest joy that I have is to see an offensive lineman running with a running back or a wide receiver into the end zone. So we really want to encourage guys that you get your initial block and then you start moving upfield and see who else you can cause trouble for. In our zone rules, guard makes the calls, no doubles, but lots of combos. Now we simplify our zone rules down a ton, just so guys, we can go fast. We tended to play very fast as a general rule of thumb, probably maybe even before that was cool. We just felt like we were smaller and in better shape, so we didn't want to be standing around any more than we had to. I'm going to teach that on the lineman fit, that I'd like to see the front side hand on the V of the jersey, and I like to see the back side hand on the front side of the back hip. We're going to teach our guys that we're going to combo every odd technique or any odd technique or eye technique that's in the gap that we're trying to run in. And then we're happy to we teach our guys, hey, you can switch to gap rule blocking if the D-line is even technique at the gap. If we can pick it up with one guy straight on with a full fit, let's do it. Let's not make it any harder than we need to. Go into our gap rules. It's the same everybody teaches, right? Gap, on backer. So we're going to teach the guard. It's going to make the calls again. We tell them, don't be afraid to switch to zone. If you don't know what you're going to pick up, how to pick it up, you're not sure, go ahead and switch. It can be easier to block it that way if you don't know. We did not see a lot of teams run that or walk that linebacker down like you would expect. But when he did, that was a good time to switch to zone if we weren't sure how to pick it up. We also teach that we want to play side foot first all the time. And we'd like to see a two-hand fit when we're in gap rules. So we're going to practice both those things a ton. And then here's probably the key. I said earlier the guard has to make the play work. Well, here's the key. The guard has the flexibility to pull, to lead, or to climb, or to combo to get to his victim. He is responsible for making the play work. So we're going to give him some room to make some decisions. And we may not pull every time that we think that we would normally draw it up as a pull. We may not do that. If our guard is getting some success, or we're working at a second level, or we're seeing defenses adjust, we are not locked in. But that guard has got to make the play work. So this is basically the progression we teach. We teach the dive first day, and we teach a couple of kids how to run it. We probably teach the starting offensive lineman how to run it. We want to get lots of guys understanding how to run the dive. Second, we'll teach the speed option, then the counter, then a play I call the count read. And then we'll start to work into the pitch sweep, jet motion, some of the triples and some of that other stuff. I believe that you want to get really good at the things that you do. And so you shouldn't be in a rush to teach any more than you need to, but be open to teaching as much as your guys can absorb. But we're really going to focus on those front four plays. We're going to be able to run them out of 10 formations, and that's what we're going to do. And then we'll start to add stuff as it comes in. I do have on there formation-specific specials. So if we were to go to single wing, which we did in our championship game, we scored 47 points running single wing for a half. It's the only time all season we ran single wing for more than 2 plays in a row, and we ran it for a whole half and scored 47 points. So that's the time when we started to teach the kind of single wing specific stuff, was around week 6 or 7, because we anticipated needing it in that championship game. And then in the passing, we're going to teach the 3-step game. I believe, I'm not really talking about passing today, but that should really be about 50% of your passing game, in my opinion. Don't tax those offensive linemen any more than you need to, and let's get the ball out fast. We'll then teach the play action off the dive and the counter, and then we'll start to teach the pass run pass option stuff out of our balance sets. You'll see that we eventually teach pass run stuff out of the unbalanced sets. The reads are a little different, and we really don't run the ball as well when we're balanced. So that's how we kind of offset not running the ball as well when we're balanced is to look at pass run option stuff. Basic mesh, everybody does the same thing for mesh. I don't need to go a great deal into that. But what I would say, and this is probably going to irritate coaches that are smarter than I am, we did not focus on teaching left-hand meshes until we had mastered the right-hand meshes on the things that were critical to us. The thinking on that is, I believe that teaching a right-hand dive mesh and a right-hand play action off the dive mesh will get my team significantly further than teaching a right-hand mesh and a left-hand mesh on a dive. That's my opinion. You can see how I set up my offense, that I am right biased. If I have a right-handed quarterback, I want to put him in a position to be successful more often than not. And I feel like the time invested on left-hand stuff that you're not going to run, since you're already unbalanced to the right, is not really not a huge value. But you're welcome to disagree and send me hate mail. I'll show you my email again. But we did get to left-hand meshes. And in 2013, we had a quarterback who liked to play under center a little bit more. So he started to see left-hand meshes a little bit sooner. But then we were happy to take some other things out of our playbook, like, or not out, but we focused a lot less on jet sweep kind of stuff then, since that kid liked playing under center. The other big thing that I want to point out here is what I really want to do is teach our guys, our running backs, to get that wrist up under their chin high with their thumb facing down, hand against the chest, and elbow tucked in tight. I really want to get that running back up and high so everyone can see his hand, so that when he brings it down, they have to respond to that. Sell that hand off every time, whether you're getting it or not. And I feel like you get better ball control when the hand rotates down. The other big thing there is we tell running backs and quarterbacks all the time, don't look at defensive linemen. Your fat kids will take care of that. We want you reading linebackers and DBs. Don't worry about defensive linemen. So that's kind of the basic mesh stuff for you guys. Here's the dive. So this is the most important play in our offense. The way I have it drawn up is basically how we ran it, and basically what we saw 90% of the time that we ran it. You'll see that it makes up approximately 40 to 50% of our run game. So when we're unbalanced, we're going to hit this, and we're going to keep hitting it, and we're going to stay after it. I feel like a D must commit to stopping this play, or they will perish. And I think earlier you saw our run averages. A lot of teams didn't decide to make adjustments to fix this until it was too late. So we really want to bring the funk on this, and this is how we play offense, and we really want you to try to stop it. You can see from here, we will run it as a quarterback lead often, and then we'll run a quarterback sweep and play action off of it as well. We will add a triple option, usually around week 5 or 6. We'll add a triple option in here with that slot back. And then we can also run it as a twist option, where the slot back is showing more of a reverse sort of action. So that's where we're at, guys. That's where we live. This is our baby. This is the one we want to work, and we're going to stick with it as long as you don't do anything to stop it. All right. So, fellas, the second thing that we like to teach is the speed option. This will make up about 40 to 50% of our run game at any given time during a season. You can see the way that it's drawn up here. We're running it, it's shown in the 500, but we ran this out of every formation that we had, no matter what. If we had a pistol back, we ran it with it. We would run it. And then, of course, it would become a veer if we were under center and running in the I or split. But most of our formations would accommodate this. So we ran the speed option about 40 to 50% of the time. We are looking to double. We're looking for that slot player, if he's on that side, to double either the defensive end or the outside linebacker. What we did find is that in this particular formation, or any formation where the slot was on this side, we often washed out that outside linebacker and would end up optioning the defensive back to the side. Not preferred from a coaching standpoint, but tended to make a lot of yards for us. We do want that quarter. So the teaching points that we would walk away from here is we need that quarterback to attack the defense vertically as soon as he clears the tackle. Young men tend to have a kind of a proclivity towards running this towards the sideline, and that's not what we want to have happen. We want him to get clear of that tackle and attack that next defensive player inside shoulder until the point that he's either tackled or makes the pitch. Get vertical, attack. And then the teaching point to the running back would be, we want the running back. We would teach it two different ways depending on how the kid's mind worked. We either are looking for 4 yards of depth and 4 yards of lateral separation off the quarterback, or the other way that we would teach it would be 5.5 yards off the back edge of the quarterback's shoulder pads. So we want that guy lined up, back edge of the shoulder pads. The second teaching point that we would teach to our running backs is your only job in this play, fellas, is to watch the quarterback's hands. Our quarterbacks ran this fairly well and would run it consistently at that linebacker and make that pitch often at the last second. I have to admit, we did have one behind the back pitch when we were running it to the left. I had a slight aneurysm, didn't get to see the touchdown, and was calmed down enough to chastise the player when he came back to the sideline. So we do want to teach a very consistent basketball pass sort of pitch, as opposed to anything fancy or any extra movement in there, just a simple off the shoulder and clean one movement. So this was a huge play for us, guys. We made tons and tons of yards, and other teams started incorporating it in their offense. It is a tough play to stop, and you are generally going to get yards on it. Ironically, our slower quarterbacks also had some success with this. I think sometimes teams wouldn't believe that we would still run it with a slower quarterback, but we would. So important to us, we're going to run this all the time, and we're going to keep running it. You can see here that we can easily turn this into a play action. We can also turn this into what we would call a twist, or what most folks would call a shovel reverse. And we could run a triple from here off the dive, and the triple option player be in the slot. So we had some flexibility here, but we ran this early and we ran this often. Third thing we teach is the counter play. We pretty much waited until teams were committed to stopping the dive before this came out, or if we had some kind of pre-knowledge through scouting that they were going to ignore this play. So this is the third thing we teach. The key here is the zone option is particularly nasty from this play based on the way you can see it blocked right here. Not a gigantic fan of the zone option, but if I run it, I like to run it from here. We can run a triple zone here, and when we did run a triple zone from here, generally we would try to get the guard included. It happened a couple of times, and it tends to go for gigantic gains if the guard is the one running it. Would have to say the next progression here would be the play action, obviously, then the quarterback lead, the quarterback sweep away, and we could triple zone or guard shovel from here. So this one gives us a lot of flexibility, but we want to get this structure and timing and mesh down on this before we start adding any depth. So kind of the fourth of our most important run plays when we ran Unbalanced was what we called a count read. We would generally call it we called it with any Muppet name except for Elmo, because I hate Elmo. We ran it with any Muppet name. We generally didn't call it as coaches. It was generally an audible. So we didn't feel like we could see it as well as the kids, but we encouraged and taught the read on this, and we got guys very acclimated to making sure that offensive linemen and quarterback were counting to look for this play, because when it hits, it's a monster. The basic teaching progression here is we're going to tell that our quarterback and our offensive lineman, when that left outside linebacker crosses the 10 line for us, when he crosses that 10 line, it's a go. If the safety's also at 7 yards. Now, we do give the quarterback some discretion if he's been playing in the course of the game. He'll know, he and his linemen will often know if they can get that linebacker, if he's maybe like a 20-eye technique, or if the safety's in a little bit closer, or if we're in a formation where the slot's on the left side of the field, is that kid a run threat? So they do have a little bit of discretion as to the breadth of when they can call it. But for sure, if they saw the situation that's on the screen right now, that's an absolute must call. We'll keep running this play until the defense adjusts. If we run it 2 or 3 times in a row, then so be it. Or 4 times in a row, we're happy to keep running this on you until you make the adjustment. Happens. We will also run this as a speed option from time to time. Just depending on what the quarterback sees, particularly if that slot is over on the left side and we might not be able to pick it all up exactly the way we want. Again, generally called by the quarterback, not called by the coach. I will tell you that if your dive is working, we will see this play come up. We will see the opportunity to run this play about every 3 to 5 times that the dive works. So it generally went, well, I can't say that. It often went for more than 20 yards, and a lot of times it went for touchdowns. So this play, once the conditions are met, is entirely damaging to the defense and to their just frame of mind. I would say, too, that this was kind of what we were trying to get to be totally honest with you guys, with being unbalanced and being so dive heavy and speed option heavy. We were really this is really what we were trying to set up. And we were rewarded by it. And we saw a lot of touchdowns, a lot of quarterback touchdowns off of this play. So real important to get, it's easy to teach, easy to see, easy to block, and you'll get it every 3 to 5 times your dive is successful. You can see the progression here is we'll probably teach a speed option on this fairly quickly, and we will teach a tight end screen. So we'll get that tight end into the game a little bit here. So that's kind of the 4 things that we like to do. That's kind of the basis of our offense and of our running game and our offense. You can see how it kind of all translates, and most of it can be run balanced or unbalanced. I do believe that because we were a smaller team, because we were a team that we generally didn't have 2 guys at any one position. We generally had 1 guy at every position and then some wide receivers. To feel like it gave us an opportunity to compete with better teams without having to play smash mouth football with guys that we didn't have. So we really were trying to maximize our staff, maximize our opportunity, and maximize that we handled our business with the staff that we had. I do want to also point out it's very important that if you're, in my opinion, I'd like to see guys running this, but I'd like to also see you including the balanced and unbalanced component. The switching back and forth, you'll often see that tight end get treated as a guard, and you'll often see that tackle get treated as a tight end. So you were going to confuse them a lot. I would say switch frequently and be prepared to switch frequently and be prepared to just kind of do stuff, right? And be willing to add that depth, but don't rush it. So just kind of in closing, guys, here's a few of my closing thoughts for you. I'll do the football stuff first. I believe that simplicity allows variety. I love the buck sweep. I love the veer. There's a lot of things that I like about football. And I like having a gigantic roster. And as an 8-man coach, I generally have not had a gigantic roster. And I don't know who I'm going to get from year to year. So I would rather have a simple system that I can make more complicated than to depend on a play that requires more complexity to do well. So that's kind of my 2 cents worth. I will say this, we were able to coach almost all of our players to play 2 to 4 positions on offense in the base stuff. As we added more complexity, maybe got a little more tricky, but we were able to get 2 to 4 guys doing different things for us. I would say we also had one guy, a backup quarterback in 2011, played every single position on the field in the course of a game, and he did it well. He did it well enough, right? So we had some injuries, we had some, just exhaustion, and Chris was able to slide around the field and play every position, including, quarterback all the way to guard. So because we kept it simple enough, we could adjust our play calling, still have some success, and kind of get through the little injury spurt that we had. I would also say, and this is a personal thing, and some coaches, I'm sure, are going to be apoplectic about this too, train your starting linemen to play a ball carrying position. Handful of reasons for that. I believe that your starting lineman in a given year could be a ball carrier in the following year. So let's get that skill set in. I also believe that it's a great way to reward kids that work hard all year. They work hard all year. They don't get the thanks. A touchdown again makes a big difference to them, and it gives you tremendously more depth, right? You're probably going to have, on a standard 8-man roster of about 20 kids, you're probably going to have 5 kids that primarily play offensive linemen. It might be to your advantage to take an offensive lineman and have them run as a pistol back or in the eye as the fullback on a goal line. Like, it's smart that they're used to it, and it's not a surprise. And then I did say that I have running back magic. So to kind of prove my point, our center, Don McAdam, if he's watching this, he'll laugh now, is probably the most unathletic football player that I have ever coached in my career. I love him like a son, but yet not an athletic football player. And we had been training, and he'd been pestering me for a while to get a chance to carry the ball, and I kind of blew him off. Eventually was able to get him the ball. He ran the ball one time in his football career for 10 yards. So he maybe was smarter than I was. And when he ran that ball and when he got that first down, our stands erupted, our sidelines erupted, coaches erupted. Everybody was excited. It definitely helped kind of the culture of our program and our just kind of demeanor on the sideline to know that we were going to give lots of kids lots of opportunities. So that's a big deal for me, and I would encourage 8-man coaches, particularly 8-man coaches, to consider it. And then for us, depth was an issue. We didn't have a lot of guys. We couldn't depend on any set of guys to finish a game, particularly in 2009 and 2010. We just didn't know. And so being able to do really simple stuff kept us in games when otherwise we might fall apart. So being able to pull a kid off the bench, a wide receiver or a lineman off the bench, be able to go in, run the ball a couple of times, keep a drive going, was a great advantage to us. Here's the other thing that I believe, and that's lots of formations, just a couple of plays. Our head coach actually said that in a newspaper interview. We don't do a lot of stuff. We just make it look like we're doing a lot of stuff. I believe personally it's easier to modify or add a new formation than it is to teach a new back action. I can teach that dive into 15 different formations in just a matter of minutes. But to add another back action with any kind of complexity and timing, it's just going to take me more time. It's more expensive. So I like that idea of lots of formations, just a couple of plays. Don't rush back actions in. If you'll kind of know, you're smart guys. You'll know when you're ready to learn new stuff and more stuff. And when you do, I would say when you do start to add back action complexity, you probably want to keep that to the guys that are to the starters, at least to start. And then a big factor for me is I want to attack defenses immediately and vertically, even in our running game. So I don't want to futz around with going sideline to sideline unless I have to. I want to get at you. I want to get your defense accustomed that they are going to get. Someone's getting hit on every play all the time. So just want to encourage you guys to get vertical. You'll see in parents there, I said, hey, I don't love the jet sweep. I don't love the zone read. I don't like bubbles and tunnels, but I see their value and I'll teach them. But that is not what I'm about. I'm about let's get the ball vertical all the time. And our passing game had a lot of the same elements of 3 guys going vertical and 1 guy is the check down route. So it was really very much our philosophy is we're going at you all the time. I also believe that you want to get your quarterback running the ball within the first 4 plays of the game and at least 5 times in a quarter. I I believe that so much that even when we subbed in quarterbacks, that quarterback, whoever he was coming off the bench, was going to run the ball in the first 4 plays of the game. I want your defense committed to the reality that my quarterback is also going to run the ball. I think it just changes the whole outlook. If you know as a defensive coordinator that I'm not going to run my quarterback, it gives you basically 2 extra defenders. If you know I'm going to run them, then I can take those 2 guys. I can basically take 2 defenders off the field. I would also say show your play depth early. It's the idea of shock versus awe, right? So if you wait on something you have that's really clever till the third quarter, you might get 15 yards on it. If you show that same thing in the first quarter, you'll probably get, and we did the math on this actually, you'll probably get a net gain of all of the rest of your plays somewhere between 1/4 of a yard and 1/2 yard a play. So show your depth early, make the defense think about everything. If you have a new install that you've finally put that triple in, or you finally added a sweep, get that right in their mind right away. Don't hold back. The surprise is not worth the anxiety, is another way to put it, right? One, it causes maximum anxiety to those defenders. I don't want to get a surprise play. I'd rather be frustrated all the time. And then the huge part that I didn't really deal much with today is the quarterback draw, and that was more prevalent in our balance formations and more prevalent. It was a very big part of it. It was our pass run game basically, and I would just tell you guys, like, teach that early and often. And scramble drills are a great way to teach that. 1, 2, 3, throw or run. Don't stand back there. Your lineman can only keep you safe for a limited amount of time. Really get that quarterback used to moving forward in those balance sets. And then just kind of the last bit of stuff is more program building, and you guys can do with this as you wish. I believe that every coach should develop and revise and keep revising your coaching philosophy and your code of conduct every year. And I would go even further to say, you want to get that your coaching philosophy and the expectations that your program has on your kids and their parents every chance you get. So often we did it at spring ball, we did it again when the summer started, and we did it again before we got paper copies in people's hands, even before the first set of games started. We really want people to understand what we're doing. We want people to understand why we do it, and we want people to understand how we do it. And I think if you can communicate that to parents and players and administrators, then people understand who you are. I was a big part of the community at Trinity, deacon at the church. My wife worked at the school, so people knew who I was, but I thought it was really important, and it became very helpful to us and our players and our parents to understand what we were about. And when things come up, then we can just say, well, I think we've covered that in writing. So I think it's an important thing. And then recruit every freshman in your building. Don't let any kid get by you. If he plays the French horn, or if he plays Dungeons and Dragons, or he's into computers, it doesn't matter. You as coaches, this is a great game. And if you're proud of your program, you really want every kid in your building participating. Sometimes they won't end up staying 4-year football players, but they might make a stats guy. They might do film. They might help out in the program in some other way. Or you're going to get some kid that plays football for you for 4 years who contributes to you as a practice player or could become a rock star given enough time. But I really believe that you want to recruit the heck out of your own building, and don't let any kid go. Try to recruit every single boy that you have access to. If you're proud of your program. One of the things that I would point out here is I would really like coaches to consider, if you can lower the cost for freshmen to play at the 8-man level, since we don't generally have JV teams and our freshmen aren't going to see the field very often, is if you can lower the cost and spread that cost out elsewhere for freshmen. I think that's a good idea, and I think it's important, and it was effective for us. And remember that the expectations that you have on your freshmen should be different than on your seniors. But make that cost of entry low for those freshmen. Get them in the door. Get them around you and your coaches in your community, and it'll pay dividends. We don't want this to be exclusive. We don't want this to be something that kids don't feel like they can be a part of. We want them to be in the brotherhood, right? So that's kind of the end. I have lots more thoughts. I have opinions about offensive line play and the passing game and defense. I love 8-man football. I played 11, coached 11. I think I prefer 8, to be honest. It's a great thing, and you can have a lot of fun with it. So I'm excited. If you guys want to get in touch with me, there's my email. If you want to fight or you want my advice, give me an email. I don't do any of the rest of the social media stuff. It's not really my thing. But give me an email, and I'll get in touch with you right away. Football season starting for us today, so it'll be later in the evening generally. But yeah, feel free to give me a call or feel free to email me, and let's get in touch and let's talk some ball. And I just want to take a minute to the guys that helped me develop this and help me become the football coach. A football coach who could win a championship ring. And that's Earl Schrader with Avalon, Scott Napier, who was with Windward, Charlie Dickey, who was with Kansas State at the time. He's now with Oklahoma State, John Stone at Santa Clarita Christian, Al Allen at Maricopa, and the Trinity coaching staff and our players. All of those folks helped me get here and helped me to take a different look at things. I appreciate your guys' time and look forward to hearing back from you. Thanks.